Well, hello. Today I'm going to interview a friend of mine by the name of James. He's in the Red Wigglers. I know you get tired of seeing AJ's face on every video, so it's time to let someone else have the spotlight. So I'm going to take it over to James. All right, James, this is your time, your moment. Let's talk about Red Wigglers and how you got started.
Well, I was living in Houston, Texas, and I was getting into gardening. Thought it was always a lot of work and never wanted to get into it. Started gardening and it was really relaxing. Started to learn about compost. Started watching a lot of YouTube videos. Explained to my wife about she wanted some new pets, and she came across a club in Missouri. It's called Missouri City Green, and so she signed us up for this class, and the whole family went down there, and we learned how to build a worm bin, and from there we bought some worms from Jim's.
Uncle Jim's Worm Farm?
Uncle Jim's Worm Farm, and the rest is history.
Okay. For your workshop or your class, did you have to pay for it, or was it free? Or
I believe it was free. It was just a local community.
okay.
And if anything, I think we had to pay for the bins.
Okay.
So it's maybe $5 or something.
What type of bins were they?
So they were we got 2 totes. You could bring whatever size, but I got the larger totes. So you had the 2 and they just stack on top of each other. You drill holes in the bottom, similar to the one that you have. And for the top, instead of doing holes in the side, we did maybe a 6 or 8 inch by 6 square hole and taped a screen to it for the air.
So, so when you went to the class, was it like exciting when you first got there? Did the guy or gal just break it down to you like, we're going to talk about worms and this is what they're going to do for you? Or how did it work out for you?
Yeah, they almost had like you know how Steve Irwin would explain things? We had someone there that was really into it, went through the scientific name, went into great detail on more than you probably ever wanted to know about worms, and I ate it up. And at the end, after we wet all the newspaper and got the bins ready, they then gave us a handful of worms, which those few worms turned out to be thousands of worms later on. So
It's awesome. So, have you ever had any worms die?
well, the worms die all the time. You normally don't see them because they break down and the worms more or less eat themselves. I've had issues with weather. In Houston, it's pretty much 80 degrees or hotter all the time, and the wife was hesitant at first about bringing these indoors,
Yeah, I understand that completely.
So we started outside, and with those extreme heat temperatures, even though there's worms that still survive, your population dips. So you can tell when your population's going up and down if they're reproducing or something's wrong and they're dying off.
Okay. So, with me, with my Red Wigglers, when I first bought them, purchased them from Uncle Jim's, I had them outside and they froze in the winter. And then this time I snuck them in the house, so don't let my wife know that I'm recording this video today. But yeah, I know what it's like. It's a huge investment when you purchase worms and then they die. It's a huge discouragement for you. But What did you feed them? I mean, did you try, were there foods you were successful with, and then there was foods that they didn't want to eat? Do you know what I mean? Or
So through YouTube videos and I from that same class.
okay, you said this recommended you to get the book "Worms Eat My Garbage."
And through this book, it tells you what to do, what not to do, how to build different types of worm bins and stuff. So I had a good idea of what they wanted. So I was heavily into banana peels, coffee grounds, potato and carrot peels. That's mainly what they eat at my house. Due to my purpose was gardens, so whatever they eat is going to be back into the soil. So I wanted nitrogen, potassium, all the different things, even calcium, with the eggshells. I also use, if I pronounce this right, zeolite.
You got me wrong.
It's a little rock mineral. It absorbs odors. So if you do, by chance, have an odor, the rock absorbs it. It also adds air circulation
Okay.
for the worms, and then a side effect for a pleasant side effect is when it goes to the garden. It also adds air for the roots,
That's
so
good.
you don't get compact soil.
That's good to hear. So, have your worms ever tried to get out of your bin?
Yes, there's a few times where, like the moisture level might be too much. I said a little bit earlier about the temperature. When it's too hot, they'll try to go somewhere. But for the most part, I have it pretty well temperature controlled, moisture controlled. The more you deal with them, the better you get.
So you gain experience over the long run when it comes to worms and stuff, composting.
And going back to what not to feed them, you figure out real quick what items not to. Like broccoli, for example. I didn't read anything on do not feed them broccoli, but broccoli, when it breaks down, it smells almost like a meat when it's spoiled.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's horrible, and it'll smell up the whole house. So
So don't broccoli's a.
broccoli's, if it's indoors, don't do broccoli.
I heard cabbage does that too. I don't know if that's true.
That I don't know. I
Okay.
have not used cabbage. I stay away from. I'll do romaine lettuce, but just like regular lettuce, how there's no nutrition value
Okay.
for us,
Yeah.
there's no nutrition value for the worms.
Okay. Like for me, when I feed my worms now, I freeze my food and thaw it out. What do you do? Do you freeze it or?
In the beginning, from the videos I watched, I was real high maintenance. I fed them daily. I would blend the food.
Oh wow.
And it got to the point where I'm at now is I freeze the food because it kills if you have, say,
Fruit flies or
fruit
whatever.
flies.
Okay.
It'll kill the fruit flies. It starts the process of decomposing, and it removes a lot of the moisture level, which I let mine drain
Oh,
once it's done thawing.
that's good.
So when I put it in the bin, I've removed a lot of the water, so I don't have to worry so much about moisture.
Okay. Well, that's good. Thank you for that. Because when I thaw mine out, I just put it in there. But that's good for the moisture and stuff. And I had a situation where my worms were escaping. And my viewers said maybe I need to drill more air holes because
what I noticed, your drill hole size for any of the gardeners out there, they know you have to have pretty large holes for that drainage for, say, a pot.
Okay, so the potholes you're talking about with the garden pots had big holes in it.
So I would increase the drill bit size so that moisture drains. And my experience with the air holes is completely different than yours because I'm using, I mean, it's roughly around that big, and I don't have any issues, it seems, with airflow. But that's a screen door rather than what you're using the drills hold.
Okay. So people experience critters. Some people have like mites. They had mites and flies or cockroaches or whatever. Have you experienced any type of critters in your bins?
Yeah, you get those snow flies and mites. The mites tend to appear when the bin's wetter than normal, and those, I call them snow flies. I think there's another name for them, but they're little tiny gray bugs. You can see that they're there, and if you put your finger up to them, they'll jump around.
Okay.
Those show up in the springtime, also with a moist bedding. I've never had any of the centipedes or millipedes or beetles or anything of that. I had a bad fruit fly attack just recently. Our local grocery store, when they had a bad fruit fly infestation, it brought it to our house, and because I didn't freeze something, it got into the bin. I actually had to get rid of my third bin
Oh no.
because it was not recoverable.
So when you got rid of it, what did you do? You had to.
So I emptied it. I emptied it into my outdoor compost bin,
Okay.
and the worms would go down into the regular compost, and hopefully there's enough food and resources there that they stayed.
Okay.
So they'll continue to break that down.
So how many worms do you think you got rid of? A rough estimate, like how many worms did you start out with? Like,
I started out with 2 pounds.
okay.
Well, I actually started from the class. I started with, it was just a handful, and that was mixed with some of their potting soil.
You said you went to Uncle Jim's and you
And
ordered.
and then after a while, because it does take a long time for them to reproduce after a new home. So then I did Uncle Jim's, and I did 2,000
Okay.
worms, which is around what,
About 2 pounds. Yeah.
So from there, they would start to reproduce, and I had to break them off into another bin. So I had 2 bins, and due to, I think we had to move, so I ended up having to dump those all out.
Oh no.
And
Okay.
some point down in the future, I restarted again and went through Uncle Jim's, and then on the move from Houston to Forest City, I had to get rid of those because you're not gonna move 50 pounds of worms.
I understand. So a question for you. Trying to see, I kind of lost my train of thought. With your worms, and you got rid of them. So you had to purchase additional worms after that. You said you had to from Uncle Jim's.
Correct. And then when I got to Iowa, I started up again. And this time I bought a combination of the European red wigglers and red wigglers. And I ended up getting back up to 3 bins. So I always start
good.
around 2,000 worms.
Okay.
The Europeans were 500 or so.
Okay.
And I got to the point where I couldn't keep up with them feeding,
Okay.
and
Wow.
I'm not doing a garden this last year,
Uh-huh.
so I had all this extra compost and worms. So I went to my wife, who likes the social media,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if we went on Craigslist or if it was just a local Facebook, and I ended up selling one of the bins and all of its compost.
Okay. So you said you knew your bins were ready to split. When you fed your worms and added bedding, did you like keep making the bin full, or how did you know it's time to harvest your castings and worms?
So where I'm at right now is I'm low maintenance. I think there's three different. There's a low, medium, and high maintenance. Where if you're high maintenance, you're going to have a high population. You're feeding them very often. You're changing out the compost probably every 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost a gray matter. It's kind of like if you used to play with mud as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of that texture, real sticky.
Mm-hmm.
It has a lot of the organic material still in it. But you're going to have a high population of worms.
Okay.
And then on the opposite end, where I'm currently at, is low maintenance, where you change 4+ months,
Yeah.
which is, to me, through this winter time, is why I went this route, is because you're not using that compost. So your
Mm-hmm.
worm population, they end up dying.
Yeah.
The soil's less healthy,
Okay.
but they break down. They'll go through it multiple times, and they'll break it down to, if you were to buy the compost from a store,
Mm-hmm.
where they bag the compost, it's like that. It's really black soil.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost kind of like coffee grounds.
Okay. They call it that black gold. So, going back to feeding for a second, have you ever fed your worms onions or oranges or any stuff like that?
You want to keep because the worms don't like a lot of acid.
Mm-hmm.
You can do some orange peels, pineapple rinds,
Okay.
things like that. Just keep it to a minimum. They will break it down.
Okay.
I start my bins recently. I do all my bins with coconut coir,
Okay.
and that holds a lot of moisture, and it also has a low pH, so I don't have to add too much calcium, which comes with the eggshells naturally. So.
But I heard this, or something that I heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard some cocoa coir could have like some additive ingredients that could affect your worms. Have you ever heard anything like that? I mean, people do use it. I know they're successful with it, but have you ever heard anything negative about?
I use it for gardening purposes. I do my seed plants that way because it tends to be a neutral starter,
Mm-hmm.
where if you're using soils from outside, you don't know what's in that soil, and it can be harmful to
That's right.
to the seed.
That's right. It's
So
good.
what I've heard from coconut coir has always been positive,
Mm-hmm.
where peat is a natural resource and it's limited, and if you're using peat, if you're into the environment, you tend to want to stay away from buying peat.
That's right. So, another question I'm going to ask you personally: were you embarrassed at first to say you had worms, or were you like you're kind of scared to tell your friends that you had them? Because for me, it was like it took me a while to step out of my comfort zone, and now I'm like I have worms. I'm not embarrassed, and people know I have worms now. So, and then you tell them. For me, I tell them the benefits, what they do, and it changes people's perception of things. Were you embarrassed or anything at starting out, or?
Starting the first battle is the wife and daughter. But that class helped them because you get them involved. You find out that there is no, if everything's going well, there is no smell. You don't have to worry about the bugs and insects. They just sit in the corner of the house somewhere and they do their thing. My daughter got to hold the worms at the class. She started naming our worms.
Oh wow, that's a lot of names.
Yeah, Cherry, Larry, Barry. They all seem to rhyme.
That's awesome.
So getting them involved helped. And then when I was talking to other people, because I would grow plants indoors and in my garage, and so a lot of neighbors were asking what I was growing because they were suspicious.
The cannabis?
Yes. And from there, we would talk about worms, and you just get used to it after a while. I get friends currently now at work that they give me a hard time.
Yeah.
But no, I enjoy it.
But when you think about it, I mean, you can make money off of worms, and there's so many benefits that you can do with them. And a lot of people, they don't really know what we can do with them, and because some people have made a lot of money, doing things like that. So, yeah, people are going to say things, but just keep moving forward. And one more thing before I'll let you say anything else you'd like to say. Viewers, if you have any comments, leave them in the box, and I'll get back with James. And but your castings, we sift them. Was there a special machine you used? Did you just use like some type of thing with holes in it to sift it, or what did you do to sift your castings?
So I've had multiple different types of bins. I've had the Worm Factory.
Oh, okay.
360, I believe.
Yeah,
it's
that's
called.
the tower, the tiers, whatever.
And what I found with that one, there's so much air circulation. In my situation, it dries out pretty quickly.
Okay.
The weight of all the other bins compacts the castings. So when you see the 5 towers, if you're feeding them regularly, you almost never get to 5 towers.
Okay.
And the sorting for that is just as difficult to me and time consuming as it is the regular bin. Okay. I suggest that you save your money and just buy a couple of totes and go that route. They, I believe they reproduce a lot faster in that route. And then when it comes to sorting, it's the same amount of time where you shine the light on them, let them go down into a pile, take off the castings. I don't sort the eggs.
Okay.
I also don't take out the organic material if there's pumpkin seeds, or I leave that in there.
Okay.
Because other than growing a pumpkin plant, all those materials help in the garden also.
That's good.
So
James said if you have to, go the regular Rubbermaid tote bin route, but if you want to sponsor him and prove him wrong, throw a special type of bin that might change his mindset if you can persuade him to sponsor, to promote your product.
And make sure it's a solid bin too, because if it's clear, you're going to have all sorts of stressed out worms.
I hear you. Yeah, I bought me a clear tote, so when I do my castings, like I'm about to separate a bin downstairs because it needs new bedding and I want to expand the population for spring. But I have the clear tote just for that. So if there's any worms left, I want them to go down and stuff.
You brought up a good point, or reminded me. If you see the red wigglers trying to crawl out, that's one way to find out that your worms aren't happy. Another way is if they're balled up.
Okay.
Because when they're balled up, they're stressed out. So there's something that they don't like.
Okay. I'm gonna throw a term in there, viewers. They say when worms, a lot of your worms try to escape, it's called an exodus of worms. That's what I was told it was called. So, and he says if there's a ball of worms, it causes, he said it could be a problem too.
When they're stressed out.
Okay, that causes, okay.
So when you first get your worms in the mail, they're going to be stressed out.
Okay.
It will take a while for them to break out of their ball.
Yeah.
And start reproducing again.
Okay. So if you do everything well, your worms will reproduce and you'll both be happy campers, right? So is there anything else you'd like to add, James? Because I really appreciate your time. You gave a lot of great tips. Viewers, like I said, if you would like to know anything else, touch base with James in the comments because I'll get back with him and maybe we can do another video. So, but I just want to say thank you, James. Anything else you'd like to add?
I welcome everybody starts from down the rabbit hole by watching a YouTube video or some other form, maybe hearing about it, and just welcome all those new possibly farmers, worm farmers.
Well, James, I really, like I said, appreciate you. It took a few weeks to get together, but thanks for taking your time out and stepping out of your comfort zone. Viewers, I'd like to say if you liked the video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and last of all, just share it because people nowadays need to be educated on worms. I just want to say thanks again, James, and you guys have a great day. Bye.